Rebel Moon Part 1, A Child of Fire is an average movie. It's boring. Do not go out of your way to watch Rebel Moon. Quick synopsis. A simple group of subsistence farmers on a backwater asteroid are eking out a living when the evil Galactic Empire shows up demanding tribute. They can't provide it, so they seek out help from other groups they have met to form a rebel alliance, to destroy the Empire once and for all. Sounds familiar. The opening scene sent warning bells into overdrive. The main character, Cora, is plowing a field in front of a skyscape featuring a massive ringed planet. Talk about cliche. This reeks of desperation, of trying too hard. What's the most epic opening scene we can think of? Cora is such a boring character. She's supposed to have been adopted at birth by an enemy general and raised as his daughter, so she's had years of military training, thereby avoiding being a Mary Sue. But this training has made her nigh on invincible. It helps that her attackers are completely incompetent. In her first action scene, she's restrained by the enemy, who watch as she kills their comrades one by one, not once taking a shot at her. The enemies wait for her to pose and somersault before attacking. The enemies are laughably bad cardboard cutouts with no desires other than to be evil. Oh, you say you can give us 10 bags of grain? Well, we're taking 20. They all appear to be generic space Nazis, with most of them being white men. If you see a darker skinned bad guy, you know he's actually got a heart of gold and will do the right thing in the end. They have some kind of weirdly dressed women with them, who they never introduce. They just carry some objects that may or may not become important at a later date. I assume there's some kind of space witches who practice the dark arts, but it's not really touched on throughout the entire 2-hour film. I don't care enough about these characters to remember their names. I just think of them as the character the actor played in other shows, which gets difficult as the secondary good guy played the same character in Game of Thrones as the main antagonist. The design of the sets and costumes feels like someone had a dice with different cultures on each side and rolled it to generate everything. Asian looking cities that don't have Asian people in them, then they do come across an Asian character in a grungy mining city. So many times a character will be introduced by someone saying, "That's X, the leader of Y, who's famous for having done Z." Meanwhile, they all just stand around staring into the distance. One major character dies in this movie and it's hyped up to be some super emotional moment, but he was the newest acquisition, and he was the only one to not come alone. So his loss was a fraction of what his faction contributed to the cause. But we at least did get a hideous she-beast gender-neutral thing that allowed us to witness the birth of a new Soyjak. There's a Tarzan type guy who's apparently the prince of some defeated planet now in exile. He tames a griffin, and we get one of the most ridiculous scenes in this entire film. The griffin seems to like him and let him ride, but then tries to throw him off. This thing is slamming into Rocky Canyon walls at 100 miles an hour and acting as if nothing has happened. When it does throw him off, for some reason it swings around a bend sharp enough that Tarzan can jump back on. Then he's okay with him riding. Of course, they do a low flyby of the assembled gang and everyone poos their pants except for Cora. Can't have her react to anything. She's a badass, remember? There's an Asian swordmaster with robotic hands. Why robotic hands? You would think maybe she had mastered the art of sword fighting so well that her one weakness was losing the grip on her sword. So she sacrificed her hands to ensure she would never be disarmed again. But nope, some stupid Spider-Woman disarms her easily. That Spider-Woman feels ripped out of the pages of the comic saga by Vaughn and Stables. There's an already formed rebel group, which kind of defeats the purpose of this rebel group, led by Ray Fisher of Cyborg fame. He's, I don't know, a good leader? Is he meant to be a good shooter? Because we never see it, but he always has that gun. Probably the worst character, besides the lead, is Charlie Hunnam's character, Han Solo Light, but in reverse. He attempts to get the co-star to turn on his team, but he never would, as they're basically forming an alliance in response to his mistake. He's the one most motivated to see the mission through, as it's his village. He got the chief killed. Befitting of the character, Charlie's death is the most ridiculous death. He forces old mate to aim a captive bolt gun at the spine of Cora, which has to be locked in place with a quarter turn. He then allows old mate to disengage the device, turn around and thrust it under Charlie's chin and kill him. Are you even trying? There was one interesting alien. It was like a jellyfish that had its tentacles around a corpse and used the corpse to communicate and act on its behalf. But as soon as another poorly choreographed shootout occurs, this creature disappears, never to be seen again. The movie has some atrocious dialogue. People sprout prose like Shakespearean actors when just talking about going to the shops for a bottle of milk. I rolled my eyes so hard they almost achieved escape velocity. The villagers they are trying to defend are major dumbasses. The chief of the village gets himself killed because the co-star of this film contradicts him in front of Satan himself. What did you think was going to happen when Savage Opress asks for an honest answer in regards to your production levels? Oh, I see, it's all just a simple misunderstanding. They claim to be scraping a living by the sweat of their brow, yet people are continuously riding their horses over the fields, when there's a clearly worn path mere feet to their left. When the evil empire that has just murdered their chief leaves a battalion of troops behind, who we see abusing each other, so clearly they're gigantic bastards. The villagers decide to let their sexy, young, innocent blonde daughter go collect water right next to their barracks. There's a robot that is introduced early on. It's treated poorly by the bad guys. We're told they can no longer fight, but a young girl makes a crown of daisies and places it on the robot's head, so now it's changed sides. We don't see the robot for the rest of the film, but 2 minutes from the end we see it in the fields with a headdress made of antlers. What a waste of Sir Anthony Hopkins. Must have paid his hourly rate. The robot effects were good, but there were extraneous animations that served no purpose, like a flap under the ear area that was animated for no apparent reason. The rest of the effects are serviceable. The spaceships look kind of like submarines, which is cool but uninspired. There are some shonky green screen effects, in particular one where the bad guy is standing on the cargo door of his ship as it is taking off. Would have been a nice shot, but the keying was a bit off. Also, the horses look too much like horses. Unfortunately, I have to give Rebel Moon a 4 out of 10. I can't recommend watching Rebel Moon Part 1, Child of Fire. For a start, how pretentious is that name? First, Part 1, maybe make sure it's a success before you go talking about sequels. Second, A Child of Fire. Talk about cliche. What's Part 2 going to be called? Dark Uprising? The weird mishmash of styles makes it feel like a game of Super Smash Bros., where you have characters from many varied franchises brought together with no coherent theme. The main character is untouchable, so there's never any tension. Calling it Part 1 means that we know that none of the main characters will come to harm. There's meant to be a Snyder Cut of this movie, rated R. Perhaps that will be a better watch, but they should have released it concurrently. The movie could do with some gore or boobs, just to give your memory something to grab onto. The main character, Cora, has a pretty good body. I spent most of the early scenes perving when she was just in her overalls and was all sweaty. And I swear there was a part where she was pulling closed the curtains, but you could see right through them. That would have been a perfect spot for a strip show. Also, in a flashback, they talked about how the army encourages taking a lover. The village even has a festival where they're instructed to increase the fertility of the crops by making love. Tell me there wasn't meant to be lashings of boobas. All we got was a bit of man ass. If you have Netflix and it's a rainy day with nothing else on, give it a shot. Why not? It's not costing you any extra. But do not pay to see this film. Unless you enjoyed Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace as a standalone movie, divorced from the memes, watching it on its own merits, maybe you are the target audience. Thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, please consider subscribing. I release reviews occasionally when time allows, and a thumbs up would be a big motivator for further reviews. If you didn't like it, feel free to leave a thumbs down and let me know how I can improve in the comments below. Anyway, I'm Mixie, thanks for your time, and have a good one.